Hey my beautiful mum, my name is Veena V, the founder of Mum to Millionaire, and this is my series called Behind Closed Doors. We've already talked about postnatal depression, domestic violence, and last week we talked about how you can still be friends with your ex if you have a child with them. This is going to be the last video in the series of Behind Closed Doors because it's been very draining for me to kind of talk about all this stuff that has happened in my past, and because I'm in such a different place now, I don't like to go back there, and I just hope that these videos have been helping some people in some way. Today I'm going to talk about abuse from my child, and I just don't know if this is the right word. I'm sure there's another word for it, but I just can't think what it is. In the mildest form, it's kind of when your child is kicking or hitting you, but what my son has done in the past and does it sometimes now but to a milder extent is when he would literally be punching me or kicking me, or once he tried to push me down the stairs. So it's a very kind of extreme form of what maybe many parents experience with their child. And the reason I want to talk about this today is because I think there is so many parents that could be going through this, but again, as with so much stuff that happens in a life, we don't want to openly talk about it because number one, why should we? It's our personal life, you know, that should be kept private. And at the same time, it's kind of the feeling of being embarrassed. Like, I don't want to admit that my son has done previous stuff because why should I say this on YouTube? But I just really hope this helps other parents who are going through this right now, or who have maybe gone through it. And the whole theme with this whole series called Behind Closed Doors is to make you understand that whatever you are going through in your life, you are not alone. Someone else is either currently going through what you are going through right now, or they've been through it. His tantrums probably started about the age of 1.5, and I can remember saying to the health visitor once, is this normal? Like, isn't it supposed to start at 2, like the terrible 2s? And she said, you know, with some children it does start earlier than that. So my son's behaviour started happening from when he was about 1.5, but I put this down obviously for the terrible 2s. They can't control themselves. I'm sure your child has done this, where they kind of lie on the floor kicking and screaming, all that kind of stuff, and my son did that as well. He used to do one thing that was very disturbing to me. He used to bang his head on the wall. So maybe instead of kind of going on the floor in a tantrum, he would just literally be banging his head on the wall, and it wasn't a slight bang, it was very vicious and ferocious, just banging, getting all his anger out onto the wall. And one thing which I would never ever forget is I was in a park one day. It was a beautiful sunny day, sitting down, and sometimes I like to try and make conversation with other mums, and there was a mum kind of sat next to me with her baby, and then we obviously got on the subject of kind of terrible 2s and tantrums. She said, you know, my daughter does that, she kind of messes around sometimes. And I was like, oh yeah, my son like bangs his head on the wall. And that look I will never forget. She kind of just looked at me like I was some kind of freak. And then, no joke, within about 30 seconds, she got up and left. Now, I know she probably maybe had to go home or whatever it was, but you know, when you're kind of in that situation, I was like, oh my God, she actually thinks I'm really strange because my son bangs his head on the wall. Anyway, I always do this. I kind of digress onto random stories, but that's where my son's behaviour started. And since then, it got worse and worse and worse. That kind of behaviour of him doing that kind of stuff, the kind of normal tantrums you would get, maybe to the extreme of what toddlers do, he started to direct a lot of his anger towards me, where he would be viciously kicking me. This wasn't just at home. He would do this out in public, really kicking me very hard, to the point where a few times I've had bruises on my leg because of the force at how he was kicking me. And even sometimes at home before, when he would get really angry, he would have a fork in his hand and be like, I'm gonna kill you, and all that kind of stuff. Again, I A lot of the things I've probably blocked out of my head. That is, I think, one way of me coping with stuff that has happened. If you haven't watched my domestic abuse story with my ex, I kind of explain a lot in that as well, in terms of I just block a lot of the stuff out, because if I was to sit here and think about all the stuff I've been through, I would literally be sat on the floor right now crying to you. And I don't want to go back to that place. So I'm just kind of maybe giving you a very kind of quick overview to what's been happening. But that has lasted from the age of 1.5 all the way until the age of 7. My son is currently 7. So he's only calmed down over these last couple of months. Once it got so bad where basically my son would have bad days at school, and as soon as I would pick him up, he would literally take all his anger out on me. So he would see me, literally run to me and start getting in a tantrum, kicking me, going on the floor, running away, doing all that kind of stuff as soon as he saw me. And once it got really bad at school, we were right outside the gates. He was literally on the floor, like literally doing this, punching me, kicking me. I got his hand and I literally dragged him to the school office and I said, I want to speak to his teacher. I went into his classroom and I literally just burst out crying and I said, have him. I was like, do you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I just said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want him. And I actually said that to him, and I feel so bad for doing that. But if you can kind of understand my mentality of going through, or it wasn't just the tantrum stage maybe lasting a year, this has been from the age of 1.5 all the way to the age of 7, and I had just had enough. And I was like, you take him now. I do not want him. And I sat there and cried. And because I'm such a kind of happy, positive, smiley person, the teacher looked at me in shock. She was like, just looked at me, because obviously they always see me happy, they don't see me crying. And then she got another teacher, she got one of the, I think they have like a specialist teacher in school. They came and they just sat him down and talked to him, going, look what you're doing to your mum, you need to stop this. And I know I'm kind of quickly kind of skirting through all of this, but like I said, this went on for years. And my son hasn't always been like this. Of course, you know, we would have maybe sometimes months where he would be an angel, very good, different matter in school. But for me, he'd be very good. Then we would have these really violent stages when he was taking it out all on me. He wouldn't do it to his dad when he came to pick him up, or to any other person. It would just be me. And that was a very low point in my son's behaviour, because I thought, oh, do you know what? I like I said, I just did not want to be his mum anymore. I just didn't want to do it. And then it was after that finally the school started to take me seriously, because since he's been at school from the age of 4 till 7, so that's 3 years, I was always telling his teachers, please, we need some help, we need some support. Finally, one teacher, for the first year, nothing was done at all. The second year, I started again. I was like, we need help. He needs to see someone, something. Finally, they put him into kind of a school counselling, where he would go there once a week, talk with a teacher for about an hour. So that was the good thing. At least he was going to see her. But again, I even had a meeting with his counsellor and I said, you know, how's it all going? And she's like, when he sees me, he's a different child. Because what he was doing with her was playing, in essence. It's like they were making cakes together and making arts and crafts stuff and all that. So she never saw the side which I saw of him. So you explain a bit more about the situation as well. So not only was he being violent towards me, he was playing up a lot in school. I don't know about where your children go, but where my son goes, they have a system of green, yellow and red. Green is like, they say, oh, everyone stay on green, that's good to be green. Yellow is when you get a warning, and they actually give you cards, by the way. So yellow is a warning and red is like bad. Like red is like the worst thing you can get. And my son would be getting red cards every single day at school, because he just did not like it. He would be sat there running around in class while all the other children are sat there nicely doing the work. He was just on the floor, like running around. Now, another thing, so you understand, is that even though he was very naughty at school, he was and he is very, very bright. He's very intelligent. He's better at maths than me. he's very, very clued up on the world. He even knows stuff about politics from a very young age. He's always been very switched on and very clever. So I think his behaviour was not only bad at home, but it was bad at school, because he doesn't like sitting there for ages and just learning stuff he doesn't want to learn. However, that said, he will sit there and do things he does like maths. His favourite subject at school is maths. He will happily do that. He likes PE and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully I'm building up kind of a picture of what my son is like. Another thing that really affected me and got me to that point which I explained before about me literally marching him into school and be like, take him, is because he was being so bad at school. What happened, it's like a vicious cycle, isn't it? Because he was being bad at school, then other children would start blaming him for stuff he hasn't done. And because since the age of 4, since he's been in reception, he's had that reputation now of being the naughty child, the bad child. Other children have now clocked onto that. So, you know, if someone has done something bad in the school, in the class, they would just blame my son. Now, sometimes, yes, I admit, it would be his fault. But a lot of the time, that is what would make my son so angry. He would come home crying, going, Mummy, they're all blaming me. I wasn't even near that person when that person pushed that person. And that's when I also had to keep having so many meetings with the school and say to them, look, I completely understand that my son is no angel. We all get that. But now he's getting the blame, not just from other children, from teachers. If something was happening and they would turn and my son would be there, they would blame him because he's in that group of children. So it's kind of been like this in a circle and a vicious cycle for many years now. Oh, and one other thing I did actually, because I kept pushing the school, you know, that point when it got very, very bad, I literally begged the school again. I was like, please, there must be something you can do, else we can do, to just check him out, just see if he's okay. They finally referred us to a hospital, so we had a meeting, an appointment at the hospital. Oh, and we had to wait probably about 4 or 5 months to get that appointment, which by that point, this was kind of July now, just when he had nearly finished school for the year, and his behaviour had improved. So we took him there anyway, and they said, okay, he seems fine to us. We can see there is something there with him. They don't know if it's, they don't want to put a label. But I think as a mum, you know, I don't think my son has any kind of hyperactive disorder, even though he is very energetic constantly. But do you know what? So am I. I'm very, like all the time. And my son's like me. But what I think he has more inside him is anger towards maybe me and his dad not living together, or stuff he's seen in the past. Again, I've done other videos about this. That is what I think he needs, more kind of counselling rather than having a label stuck to him, which actually the hospital were very good. They were like, we're not sticking any label on him at all. So that was the situation that happened, and yeah, since September, he's actually been much better. He's hardly been getting any red cards at school. He's much better behaved. There still is slight incidents where he might be getting in trouble and other children are still blaming him, but I'm going to make sure I'm working with my son and the school to make sure that he's not going to go down the same path as he did before. In terms of him being violent towards me, he might still lash out at me, but it's not like it was before. So now he might kind of do a little thump, and I know this is going to sound very strange to some people, but maybe you only understand if you have been through this. Now he might kind of do a little kind of tap here and there, and even with that, I'm just trying to say to him every time he does it, I go, you do not do that to your mum. You do not do that to anybody, a child at school, your mum, your dad, a stranger. You do not hit people. If you are angry, If you are angry about something, you talk about it, or you go in your room and you punch the bed. You go and take your anger out on something. So I'm really trying to just talk to him. And even me and myself, I used to get so angry, over the top angry, when he would be lashing out on me. I would just cry and shout at him going, why are you doing this? You can't, why are you acting like, you know, and it would just escalate the situation even more. So now, even in myself, I'm slowly learning. I've slowly learned, even now, as every day is a new day and a new challenge for me. If he does get into a very bad mood, or he's starting to trying to lash out at me, I will try and walk away from him, or I will literally kind of get him, hug him and say, please, you need to stop doing this. And those two techniques have been working. So my computer has decided it doesn't want to edit the video anymore. Anyway, I just really hope that this video has helped you in some way. And just maybe if you've never been through this, if your child is an angel, which I really hope and pray that they are, but if you have been through any of these problems, or even if you haven't, I just hope it's opened your eyes. And if you are going through something like this, just remember that it will work out in the end. Everything will work out. Your child will get better. But you have to be willing to change yourself. Like I mentioned before, I was a lot more snappy before, or, you know, shouting maybe unnecessarily sometimes. You have to work on yourself as well. Even, yes, there is something within my child that might not be quite right. A lot of it depends on how I'm reacting to him. Working with your school, working with the father of your child, you all just need to work together. And I promise that your child, if they're going through what my son's been through, they will get better in the end. I promise you that. And I hope you can see that, you know, my son is getting better now, like I said before. And, you know, it's just baby steps every single day. Thank you so much for watching. If you want me to talk about anything else, anything I've maybe touched on or kind of glided over, comment below. I would love to have your opinions on any kinds of videos you want to see next that could really help you or maybe one of your friends in their life. I've got some other videos right there if you haven't caught up with the series, postnatal depression, and also domestic violence and other things that have gone on in my life. And please do subscribe to this channel by clicking right there if you want more mum motivation, real talk, and also updates on my mumpreneur journey. And remember, you are doing an amazing job as a mum, so don't you ever forget that.